really good.
Let's go a little bit less local, but still in our own state. Minneapolis to spend $6.4 million to hire more police officers. It's really hard for me to say that without chuckling, quite honestly.
I'll laugh at
And because we all know here at the table what that is kind of about. So let's read the story. Minneapolis will spend $6.4 million to hire dozens more police officers after a large number of cops left the department in the aftermath of the George Floyd's killing and the protests that followed. The Minnesota City Police Department said it has just 638 officers available to work, 200 fewer than in recent years, says the Star Tribune. Several cops quit, retired, or went on extended medical leave, many for PTSD claims. After last spring's riot that included a precinct being burned down and calls to end the police force, some 155 officers remain on some form of extended leave, according to the report. In the months since the protests, many residents have urged the city to hire more cops, saying they're waiting longer for responses to 911 calls amid a surge of violent crime. The additional funding for the force, unanimously approved by the city council on Friday, comes even as some council members and activist groups are pushing to dismantle the department, saying police haven't proven effective at reducing crime. 3 council members have written a proposal to replace the force with a public safety department that would include policing and other services. A coalition of community activists called Yes for Minneapolis are also working to get a similar proposal on the November ballot. I have a hard time with this article in so many ways. Boy.
Woo!
I'm not going to start.
I will.
Go ahead, Craig. Go ahead.
I don't wish crime or homicides or murder on anybody, but you reap what you sow. And elections have consequences. And the city council in Minneapolis is getting exactly what they deserve. They called for this. Duh. Like, what did they expect?
I agree. Not only did they call for it, they, despite a lot of advice, they continue to call for it. I'm trying to be really nice, but I don't want to be. They were really jerks about it.
It was a knee-jerk reaction to a horrible situation, but that whole common sense thing, whether it exists or not anymore, I just have to shake my head. Like, how can you think that less police is a good thing? And now they're reaping what they sowed. They're paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel terrible for the Minneapolis residents in these areas that have seen this massive decline in police. Now, look, I support good police officers, 100%. I work with them in the schools quite a bit, and 100% support good police officers, sheriff, whatever. You get the idea. But the bad ones, I mean, they got it. They know them, and they got to get rid of them right away.
Absolutely. The union needs to do a better job of not protecting the bad cops.
Right.
I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
No, but they are protected more than they should be.
So I brought up this article, and obviously this hits home for me. This is this is a really hard article because who's going to want to be police officers anymore? You know, I have it in my family right now, and some people very close to me, and someone who was deployed with my son to Iraq and Afghanistan is now out on PTSD leave from the Minneapolis Police Department, and you know, felt what he did in Iraq and Afghanistan was the same thing that happened on the streets of Minneapolis. You know, they were left abandoned. They didn't know who they were fighting for. Their own people turned on them. So, you know, I have the emotional side of all this. Plus, you know, there's legislature being passed that police officers aren't going to be able to have insurance. They're going to have to carry their own insurance. So really, what is the true underlying issue with this? Like, are they really trying to make it known and aware that no one will apply to be a police officer in Minneapolis so they can come in and have this social worker program? Like, is it kind of twofold where, look, we tried to hire people, we couldn't get it, so now we have to implement this social worker program?
Sure, that they're forcing the issue on.
Yeah.
They're
I'm
forcing
kind of
their
looking
agenda.
at it like that. Like, this is a really big deal for me. I mean, this is an hour away from us here in Rochester, Minnesota. Obviously, yes, there's good cops, bad cops. There's good dentists, bad dentists, different things
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that. But how they're going to spend a lot of money, a lot of taxpayer money. And we talk about, what they could have done being proactive, thinking correctly. There's no corrective thinking with this. There just is not. I mean, they're going to go and try to spend all this money to recruit people. Who is going to go there? I mean, who is going to go to Minneapolis to go work right now? They can't even
Exactly.
get them to work overtime. They're going to have issues with the George Floyd trials coming up here in March, where they have coverage. And they had to have departments come together and say, no, we will provide coverage. Like, we don't want the people in Minneapolis to have to go through this. There's private citizens that are going to go up there and try to help provide security, knowing what's probably going to happen. And now Minneapolis is saying, we're going to spend all this money, $6.4 million, right? Mm-hmm. And try to recruit people. Is it realistic? Is it? I really don't think it is.
No, I don't think it is either. I know some people in the National Guard and that were on scene. They were trapped.
Yeah.
And they said it was worse than when they were in Iraq.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I mean, it's totally a mess.
they have 100 and some officers out.
And let me say this: they're not afraid of the citizens in Minneapolis. That's not their problem. Their problem is the government officials that have told them
Sold
to
them
stand
out.
down and
They
told
won't
them to
allow
give
them
up.
to do their job.
They won't allow them to do their job.
Yeah.
And so the national, this one in particular, the National Guard has had a significant financial gain offered to be some sort of police force in Minneapolis. Like, according to what he said, they're literally looking at privatizing some certain things in certain neighborhoods.
They're going to have, I mean,
I don't know if that's going to, I don't know
maybe
what
it'll be the same coverage that the city council members get.
Right. I don't know what it
really,
looks like,
literally.
but
I
he
mean,
was
maybe they
saying
should use
like
the same agency that they have for
they're
security.
recruiting. I mean, there's neighborhoods up there,
Yeah.
literally up. I don't know how legitimate that is or what that means, but I imagine it looks like to me it looks like a suburb, and their dues are going to a security force. I mean, that's the way he described it to me.
Well, they still have the zone that the police still can't even go into.
Right.
Downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So
The government needs to govern. They need to not control their city, but they need to do their job. They need to protect their citizens. And I understand the term defunding the police is a horrible term because they're not trying to take all the money away. And I understand the concept of getting counselors and whatnot added to the police force. I completely understand.
Add it.
Add it, yeah.
I
Not
completely
in lieu
understand
of.
that.
Yeah,
And
add it.
I would agree with
not
that.
in lieu of.
Yeah.
Our,
does that. Yeah,
our
Olmsted has it right
situation
now,
in
yeah.
Rochester with, and his name escapes me, the gentleman that was killed at Cub Foods several years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and he had some mental shortcomings. And had there been a social worker in the vehicle, things probably would have been different. And a horrible lesson to have to learn. But I mean, that's a case in point of adding to the police force.
Yeah.
But to just eliminate a certain amount of police is it's an asinine idea to me.
So that's all I could think of when I seen this article was, are they literally trying to use every opportunity to come back and say, look, we tried to hire them and nobody wants to be police officers, so now we have to do this community service program that we
They're
really
pushing
want to do.
in
You know what I
a
mean?
very horrible way. They're pushing their agenda.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that. It looks that way to me too.
I guess the only thing what I would say about it is I looked at it a lot differently. I looked at it as it was mentioned a lot of police officers that had to, take leave for PTSD. And my thought, of course, was mental health. I'm like, why are we not funding to help these individuals that are already part of the force, that are part of your family? As we all know, police, firefighters, I don't care who you are, military, they all consider, themselves each other family. So why are you putting $6.4 million into recruiting when you easily could take a couple million, help the people that are already there, fighting the good fight? That's, I'm sorry, guys, I looked at it in the mental health way. I'm like, help those individuals. They need it. And then go from there. Get your people back on the job. Help them to be able to cope not only, during the job, inside job, but at home. Help those individuals. Those are your people.
What I find really fascinating is I've had the privilege of being in several different countries. And one of the things that is very unique to our country that and I say unique tongue-in-cheek, we don't think posterity, right? We don't think future generations. We just don't as a society, period. I see a lot of families even, they don't think that. They don't think past the end of their paycheck or their retirement or whatever that might be. A lot of the other cultures in the world, they are thinking literally 4 or 5 generations down the road. And so you get a situation like this, and we're a generation away from seeing really what's going to happen unless something dramatic changes. Because these politicians are like, we're in office for 4 years or 6 years, depending upon what their position is. We know that we have this amount of time to create whatever kind of chaos or whatever you want to call it on whatever side of the aisle that they can, and that's it. They might not have another shot at it. And I don't know, something there needs to change within the voting realm and the voting public, in my opinion, because there's a lot of people that when the George Floyd thing happened said, stomp it out right away, or we're going to have these massive issues later. And I want to tell you a quick story. I was on, has anybody been to the Minneapolis airport?
Recently?
Not recently.
Just ever?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know there's Terminal 1 and Terminal 2.
Yep.
And so there's a train that gets you between Terminal 1 and Terminal 2. It's it's a short train, right? So I'm standing there waiting for the train to go to Terminal 2, and 4 police officers, this would have been June 2020, somewhere before 4th of July, and 4 police officers come running up to the train, and they get on the train, and one of them doesn't have the radio in their ear, and so I hear over the radio that there's a perpetrator essentially holding someone hostage at knife point, having an argument. And so we're on the train now, and I hear this, and I like look at the guy, and I'm like, good luck. And he said, are you, and he said this to everybody on the train. I shouldn't say he said it just to me, but he said, if any of you are going down, and I can't remember what it was, but not an area that I was going to. This was outside of the terminal, like a parking lot or whatever. And this is obviously outside security at this point. And so they are literally going and putting themselves in harm's way constantly like that. I see it all the time. Mm-hmm. And when you can't have somebody, even this is post George Floyd and all the garbage that happened after that, and they're still there doing that. Right. So there still are some good officers. Right. Now we need to get behind them as local people, behind our officers and all those things. And that's my point, because they are out there doing this, and they are protecting people, and they're running towards harm.
Yeah.
Every
Others
time.
are running away.
Yeah.
Risking their family. I agree 100%. Being a local business owner, when that all started, I think we even talked about that, Martha May, about I pay it forward with doing free photo sessions for military and stuff, and I wanted to do something for the police. And for a business owner, I was kind of scared. I was scared, is that the right business? In my heart, it was the right thing to do, but I was scared, how would I be judged by supporting police? And I was. Yep.
And I want to hop on what Harmony said. And with my campaign last year, I spoke with Chief Rankin and others in the law enforcement realm, because that was the hot topic. And, doing my homework on things. And one thing that really stuck out to me was training for our police. And, our military, they train for 6 months. They train for a year every day for a 6-month deployment, and our our local law enforcement might train 40 hours a year, and they're on a tour for 30 years.
Yeah.
Why aren't we improving our training, whether it's crisis situations or whatever? Why aren't they having continuous training and not just 1 week a year? That's unfair to our police department. And people talk about the militarization of our police. Number one, all that equipment is left over from the wars. And number two, does nobody remember the Bank of America shooting in L.A. 20 years ago?
Yes.
Our police force was completely outgunned
by
2 criminals with body armor.
Yes.
that's why our police are being militarized.
Yes.
So that just in case that situation were to come up again, they have a fighting chance. So,
I totally agree. So I was just thinking as you were talking about that, we live in an area of the Mayo Clinic. What is the Mayo Clinic known for? Well, I mean, they're known for a lot of things, but specifically if we were to shake it out and shake it down, they are known for being specialists, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you come here for specialty stuff all day long. I think that the way I see it and look at it is we need to have weapons specialists. I mean, they do have SWAT teams, of course, but have your weapons specialists. You have your on a police force, you have those different levels and whatever that looks like. But then they have massive critical training in that area of specialty. Mm-hmm. Now you go back to having 2 police officers in the car at the same time. You have one specialist in this, and you have another specialist in say.
mental
hostage,
health and drug
hostage
Yeah.
negotiation
Yeah.
type mental health issues, right? And maybe that's what they're going towards. I don't know, but the point being is that they're trying to be so many things to so many people. The way I look at it, right? And they can't be. And they, at the end of the day, I want them to go home to their family.
Right.
They get
Amen.
into a
Yes.
situation when there's a gun or a knife or whatever. In my book, you go right ahead and shoot him in the leg first and then ask questions. I mean, I'm sorry, but
If it
I'm going to
comes-
get some massive pushback on that. I get it. And probably
You
some
know,
of
go
you at
back
the
to
table.
Minneapolis. Go back to Minneapolis. Though.
But I'm telling you,
If
It's
it
only
comes
been a
back
few-
to pulling the trigger, you're not pulling the trigger to slow them down. You're pulling the trigger to stop them. And I've had veterans say to me, "Well, they just shoot him in the leg," because if the situation is
I
that
know.
bad,
I know.
you are shooting to survive. You're not shooting to slow somebody down. If it's to that point, it's your life.
Go back to Minneapolis,
So-
though. Wasn't it just a few years ago that mayor and that police chief would not approve a budget increase to give more officers on the streets?
Yeah, I don't remember where it was. But
No, it
Was
was
that North
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis?
It was,
I remember.
No, it was I'm not
Yeah.
asking. I'm
Well, they-
saying it was Minneapolis. Like I asked it as a question, but it was Minneapolis. Only because I know some people that applied there and different things like that, and they were going to have a hiring increase because they were expecting this budget increase, and they shot it down. The police chief and the mayor shot it down and did not approve a budget increase, so they could have more coverage per person. And now they are spending the millions of dollars to try to recruit more. So just a difference of what, 4 years, 3 years, 3 years probably, 3 years. What a difference! Yeah.
So
we could
I
talk
come
about
back
this
to
for
this
hours.
thing, this thing I wrote down the other day, and I probably heard this somewhere. I'm not really sure, but you always hear Harmony loves memes. She said earlier. So I think of this as you always see the things that people talk about. There are 3 types of people in the world, right? And so I was thinking about this, and there are 3 types of people: those who fight, those who donate to those who fight, and those who do nothing. And, I was just thinking about that, and so I wrote it down. I'm sure I've heard somebody say it along the line in my life somewhere. But, I was really thinking about that. And the point of that is that it doesn't – you don't have to fight to be all, end all, and this is my way and the only way that there ever is, right? To me, that is just to have the principles to fight for. Yeah. And I think that is part of the problem in Minneapolis is that they've got these council members, and they're I couldn't find what do they stand for. I mean, most of them,
They don't
I can't
stand for
find
anything.
what they stand for. It's not consistent. It's all over the board. So then you're going to have a really crazy weak system that police officers are going to be thrown to the wind.
I mean, what if they like Harmony said? What if they took that money and put it into the system? Like 3-4 years ago, when they wanted to hire, thinking back, when they wanted to hire more officers, would there have been more officers on the George Floyd incident? Would there have been a mental health, co-partner on the George Floyd incident? All these things that have been happening since. Would there have been more bodies? Could there have been 2 people in a squad, 1 mental health worker, 1 an actual law enforcement officer, with all that money and being proactive with all that?
I want to make something really clear in my opinion, and this is my opinion. Throwing money at things and bodies at things does not make a difference. You have to have a foundation.
Proper training.
Proper training. You have to have that foundation, and you can get an awful lot done with the right amount of training. It doesn't matter. They could have been another 1,000 police officers there, but their foundation is terrible. Shifting sand.
You look at 12 special forces guys and what they can do compared to 100 infantry soldiers.
And that's not disrespect.
Absolutely not.
It's back to that specialist thing again for me, right?
Right.
Like,
Whether it's mental health or
Yeah.
just additional training.
Right.
so I don't know.
So I think they need our help. I think Minneapolis PD needs our help.
Yeah.
I think,
Right?
yeah.
I think
Minneapolis
that-
City Council needs a lot of
Gotta
help.
back the blue, yeah.
Yeah, I think they need our support for
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely,
They need our love and
and,
prayers,
and
yeah.
that support
Yeah.
would to me includes when you have a long list of grievances and complaints. We need to go in there and go ahead and say, wait a minute,
You're doing a
this
good
doesn't
job.
add up.
Yep.
You need to take a break.
We definitely need some more mental health advocates out there, not only just for society, civilians. We need it for our force too. They have a hard job. They're humans. The amount of things that police officers deal with, anybody that has that kind of profession, I can imagine has quite the impact on you. And oftentimes we always say we want to leave. When we leave work, we want to leave work at work. But sometimes it comes home with us, and we have to understand that they're human too, and they need help.
Absolutely. I've got friends in RPT in the sheriff's department, and they see things that no human should ever have to see. And just like the military, when they come home from a tour, when they walk in the front door, they can't just turn that off.
Yeah.
And they do need in the forces for themselves. They need help for themselves,
Yeah.
not just training to help others, but training to help themselves.
And I feel kind of bad. I guess the thought that keeps coming to my mind is like they want all this money to recruit more people. And again, I'm going back to it. I'm like, help your own people. You already have the people. Help
what you
them.
have.
Help them. And then, and then if you still need more people, bring them in. So I think it looks kind of terrible on them for that.
Part of that, for me, part of that mental health too is that our own personal accountability. Like we have to know that. Let me back up. Our personal accountability means that someone has to come in here and say, "Look, Matt, what? Come on, you're being an a-hole right now," and that's part of the mental health, I think.
We'll let you know.
And here's and that's good.
I thought you did.
And here's the point of that. He retired, and I literally have one more session with him. But my counselor, I told him going into it, look, this is how I need you to be, and he's like, that's good, and he is. He's like, what in the world are you thinking? Get your head on straight here. Mm-hmm. Like, back up and look at this. And that's what I mean. We can't go into the mental health thing, and so many things that I've seen is that it's too much coddling. There's too much. There's just too much coddling.
Somebody needs to lose in the baseball game. Yep.
Yes.
Tough love.
Yep. Somebody needs to put the boxing gloves on or go do jujitsu and be taken down.
Reality.
And that's right. And that's so important. So. Hey, a lot of people have asked how they can support the work we're doing here at Matt Logan Speaks. Well, you see this hammer that I got in my hand? It's pretty big. All you have to do is hammer the share button. Go ahead and hammer out a comment to us. Go ahead and hammer the like button. Go ahead and hammer the subscription button. Go ahead and hammer the notification bell so that when we have new content up, you're the first to know about it. We really appreciate the comments, shares, likes, because you know what? That's the best way you can support us, because the algorithms on all these fancy computers, that's what they need. We appreciate it.